Hi. This is a video that I kind of did a while ago as well. I'm not sure if I uploaded it or not, that I maybe just filmed it and then never did anything with it, because that happens sometimes. But I'm pretty sure I did a video on like perfectionism before, and because I've been trying to understand what it is. I mean, we all know that perfectionism is like an excessive, kind of like obsessive way of striving for perfection in one way or the other. But I thought that I had kind of stepped away from that a while ago, like a few years ago, after I was it after I recovered from my eating disorder, because eating disorders usually go hand in hand with perfectionism some way or the other. Not sure if it's for like, it's probably not for every eating disorder, right? Everyone's eating disorder is different. Wait, I just have to turn this thing on. So when I was, let's just focus on my personal experience, so that at least I can speak. I can only speak on my own experience. I cannot speak of other people's experiences, so I will try not to make it like general statements. So please bear that in mind. So for me, when I had my eating disorder, I didn't quite realize in the beginning that I was perfectionistic. I thought it was just normal behavior, or at least not. At some point, I realized that it was excessive, that it wasn't quite normal, but I didn't think it was perfectionism or it had to do with perfectionism. For me, perfectionism was more like, I don't even know. It's quite hard to grasp it in a clear way, right? So, but maybe let's say if you're trying to make a drawing and you want that drawing to be perfect, that for me was perfectionism. But in my case, what I experienced was, it was more like education, like in education way. So when I was in high school, when my eating disorder, manifested in high school, my obsession was with like getting high grades, getting the perfect grades. I mean, perfect grade, if you think about it, in our system, in our educational system in the Netherlands, the highest grade you can get is a 10. So if you think about it, if you really want your grades to be perfect, everything should be a 10. And there have been students in my class, or at least in my year, who did actually get mine, like almost all their grades were like 10s or 9s. So it is possible, but it is very difficult, especially if you're talking about like a less objective subject. Like if you have math, there is only one answer that you can get, right? And you can actually get that exact answer by just doing the math, right? But if you do something like a little less, like a little bit more subjective, like writing an essay, then there is a lot of different factors into play that make up your grade. And in university, apparently I learned that is a rule, a convention in university in the Netherlands, that no one can get a 10, because 10 is for God, because no one is perfect. Only God is perfect. So only 10s can go to God. So nobody gets 10. And then the 9s, they are for the professors, because professors, are better than students, and students can never get on the same level as a professor, I guess. So the highest grade you could get in university would be an 8 or 8.5 or something like that. But that was later on in the story. So let's get back to high school. Highest grade you can get is a 10. And in high school, most of the subjects are more like objectively graded. So the chances are that you can get a. I don't even know like why I couldn't get it, because I studied so much. So at some point in my life, I decided that I wanted to graduate with all eight, like an average of an eight, which we call cum laude. I don't know if that's a thing in other countries as well. I came, I what can I say? I came up with this idea when a friend of my sister's told me she was striving to like graduate with like cum laude. And I didn't know. Until that point I hadn't heard of that. It was my third or fourth year. Third year probably. Yeah, because in the fourth she wasn't there anymore. Like she graduated already. So my third year she told me that, and I was like, what is that? I had never heard of it, and I didn't really care much about my grades at that point. I was just having fun, and I mean getting good grades was necessary obviously, but I wasn't obsessed with it. But then I heard of this, and she was like, yeah, you can get, if you get an average amount of blah blah blah, then you can get into certain universities or certain programs, or you can study abroad. Basically you can do everything, and there are some programs or universities or societies, or what's that called, like associations, where you can only get into, you can only get access to those things if you have um, a certain educational background with a certain level. And at that point I was like, then I should do that too, because in my world, why would you strive for something less than the best? Because if you do the highest amount of stuff, you can always do the lower thing. That's why I didn't even think of going to like art school, because for me it was like, I can always do art, but I cannot always do university, why I should try to do the highest thing, so that later on in life I have all these possibilities still open for me. So that was where it started. I was like, I decided to strive for that, and it wasn't yet too late, because from the fourth year, so 4 to 6, those grades start counting for your graduation. So starting from the fourth year, I was only ever studying like in all my free time. I was studying. I brought my books everywhere. If we were driving somewhere in a car, I took it with me. If I was in the train, I took it with me. If I was even on birthday parties, I took it with me, and I still like no socializing. I need to use every breathing moment of my life to study, because otherwise it's a waste of time. That was what I was thinking. Like, what kind of useless piece of shit am I if I do not spend all my time on this important thing? And people were like, yeah, but having rest is also important. And I was like, what for? What, in rest you're doing exactly nothing. That is what? Sorry, I'm dehydrated, so I need to drink while I'm talking. And yes, I'm drinking coffee too. But actually, it doesn't dehydrate you, coffee, okay? So let's not talk about that. But I have to breathe too. I also forget to breathe sometimes. But what was I talking about? Also, I'm looking at myself right now. I'm not sure if you saw the video. I was like, oh yeah, I made a video and then I uploaded and I watched it back, and I was like, since when did I get dimples? Like here, it kind of looks like a dimple. And now I realize it's just because it's just because I'm getting old. It's just lines start appearing on my face because I'm getting older. But I actually like it. It's kind of cute. But yeah, it's not only this, it's also on my eyes. Like, I was taking a picture, and I was like, the lines, and I don't know. It's not important, but I just noticed that. I was like, I just a few minutes ago, I realized that it's because I'm just things are starting to sag, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, having rest. So my father and my parents, everyone was like, you have to rest, and rest has also a function. It's not useless because in rest, your brain is, organizing things and like, what's that called? Like processing stuff. And if you do not rest, even if you study all the time, it will not stay in your brain. And because at some point you're just overloading the system, right? It will not hold on to things. Just like when you have a test and you start to, like, just before the test starts, you're like trying to like remember things, and then you just block yourself basically, because your brain has already organized everything and saved everything, if you studied at least. And then if you try to do something new, or try to put in some new information, then that drawer is going open again, and then everything like chaos again. So so I had to learn that there's an efficient way of studying and an obsessed way of studying. But throughout my high school and even the beginning of university, I was this person that every living, breathing moment of my life I was in my books. At that point, I also didn't have anything else to do. Or like, because I do like sports, but at that point, because of my eating disorder, I couldn't do sports, and I felt like a useless piece of shit. So the only thing I could like hold on to that gave me some kind of identity was studying and becoming that person that studies a lot and knows, or like is good, I don't know, in something. That was also a reason why I did that so obsessively. It kind of became my personality, my identity. And so I also realized that, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. Very long introduction, I guess. What are we talking about? Oh yeah, so there's a connection between my perfectionism and my feeling of identity, I guess, and some kind of control maybe. But yeah, I think these three themes are very important in my life. At least I've already covered the perfectionism and the, what's that? What did I just say? The control in other videos, and I already knew that these are themes in my life when I was trying to recover from eating disorder and trying to like understand myself, and like I did a lot of thinking and research on that. But like I said, I thought with my recovery that I had like most of it like left behind, these perfectionistic behaviors. And like I said, I learned at some point, like somewhere in university, maybe my third year in university, I learned to let go of that like very tight grip on, I have to study 24/7. I started kind of like, what can I say? I started to experiment with not studying all the time, and just limit my energy and time that I spend on my studies, little by little. And I realized that it was actually much better to do that. Like I started to maximize, like, how can I say, minimize my time spending on university to like maybe 2 hours a day. And I had the same results, like same grades, maybe even higher. And I was like, well, I have a lot less stress and my grades are still the same. So how I managed, like, why did I feel okay to let go of those of that obsessive studying at that point of time? That might be because, wait, let me because in university it doesn't really matter anymore to me, because that was already the last route, the last step in my education, kind of. Not really, but at that point there was not really an idea of going anywhere else than maybe grad school. But even for grad school, also realized at that point that nobody ever asked for my, and people always say it, like nobody asks for your grade, you know. But because this girl told me that, oh, if you want to go to certain, universities or programs, you need to have the GPA. I was convinced that I had to be like able to show that. And yes, I have gained some benefits from my high marks, my high grades in high school, and also in my bachelor's degree. Because yeah, so like I said, in my bachelor's degree, I started to let go of that grip on the studying, but my grades were still high enough to also graduate cum laude on my bachelor's degree. And thanks to that, I was able to study in Korea. And I was able to apply for scholarships and got them granted to me because my grades had been this high. So yes, there's definitely you definitely get some advances. By the way, what? No, it's like word, like some good things from it. Advantages, that's it. Yeah, advantages from having high grades. But I could have managed it differently. I could have managed it more efficiently. With that being said, at that point I was like feeling okay in letting it go a little bit, because at that point I was like, it doesn't really matter anymore how much my grades are, because nobody wants to know, you know. um so that was university. And then came grad school. So I went to Korea for a grad program a few years ago. And at that point, I think I was already quite done with, like, I had left behind all this perfectionism in education, because I knew, well, not quite. It's like it was a little bit, yeah, I don't know. I thought I left it behind, but then I came in a new culture where I know that there's a lot of pressure on performing and stuff. So when I came to Korea, I kind of got flamed up again. I was like trying to do things correctly, but then this was a very special case, and I want to talk about that also today. That because I was in Korea and there was like this language that I couldn't speak 100% correctly, and this is one of the topics I want to talk about, like speaking. My perfectionism is still flaming up, flaring up when speaking in a different language, especially in languages that I have to perform, or that I have to, where I have put my identity in, which I have made my identity at that point. So right now that is Korean, because I want to be a Korean translator, and I kind of pride myself in the fact that I can speak Korean, or at least I can understand it. That's not say speak, because I cannot really speak it. That's the problem. And back in the Netherlands, when I was studying German, German was part of my identity because I was a German student, so I had to be able to speak German, right? People, if you tell them, oh, I am studying German, they assume that you can speak. They always say, like, oh, so you can speak German perfectly. And I'm like, no, I cannot. We do not practice a lot of speaking, like, except for like doing presentations and stuff. I can do that, that's fine, but then I've read into a certain topic, right? And then I know the vocabulary, I go into them just like full of freestyling. But because it was something so important to me, like to my identity, to who I assumed to be, or who people assumed me to be, or who I thought people assumed me to be, I got really like, if I speak German, I need to speak it correctly. And because I knew I couldn't speak it correct, or like I knew I couldn't speak it perfectly, I wouldn't speak it at all. Because why would I speak if it cannot be perfect, right? I also, because if other people hear me speak German and it's not perfect, they will think like, what the hell? She's like, I thought she studied German, but she speaks like crap. Like, what's that? That doesn't sound German. And then my identity, my perceived identity maybe, is starting to like break down, or people might think negatively about me because they're like, we thought she was this, but actually she's this, and she has been lying to us all the time. Or even though I did not lie about it like actively, but that is, see what I'm trying to say? That my perfectionism, so the point of this video is like that my perfectionism is still flaring up in moments where where my identity is in the picture as well. So in university it was German, then I came to so I just avoided speaking German. So just to be clear, like, I did my whole stuff. My grades were good, like I said, but that was mostly like writing and speaking, like doing presentation. I could do that, but having like conversations with one person one-on-one, I just tried to avoid that. Like don't speak to the teacher, because like if they ask me a question and I misinterpret the question, then it makes me look stupid and people will think like, what the hell is she doing? I thought she'd studied German for like 6 years now, but she still cannot understand the simplest question. I do not want to put myself in that risk and look stupid, so try to avoid that situation. Then I came to Korea, but there's no way to I tried to avoid that situation, but I couldn't, because it started already at the beginning of the semester, where we had to like visit every professor in the department, like to do some self-introduction, right? And you must understand that I had only studied Korean on my own for 1 year, and speaking was not really a big part of that, mostly because there is no person in my surrounding that could speak it. And I did try to reach out for Koreans, but then I was still too shy and too scared to speak with them, because I knew I would look stupid. So I avoided it, like I said, just with German. I avoided it, which is not helpful, obviously. So when I came to Korea, it was like the second day or third day, I had to speak Korean to the professors, which, again, I assumed that they perceived my identity as, oh, the girl from the Netherlands who speaks Korean greatly, because why else would she study in Korea the Korean language, like linguistics, Korean linguistics? My master's degree was Korean linguistics. So I came into the university with the idea that other people thought me as being that perfect girl from the Netherlands who could speak Korean perfectly, because why else would she be here? And then if they find out that I could not actually speak Korean, then they'd be like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing here? Like this imposter thingy. So again, if I cannot speak it perfectly, why would I speak it? Because it would only hurt myself. It would harm myself. Not necessarily my vision of me, because I know I cannot speak it perfectly, but other people who might have believed that I speak it perfectly, they will suddenly know that I'm not perfect, and then they will, like, my value in their eyes might go down, and suddenly I'm not that perfect girl anymore, even though I never been it. But like, that's kind of my fear, that people have a certain ideal of me, and then they find out that I'm like, they have a certain value of me. Let's say value. I don't really mean value, but I don't know how to express it, right? So they think I'm this, but then they get to know me, and then they like, oh, she's actually this. What the fuck? I signed up for this, but I got this. I don't want that. It gives me a lot of stress. So let's fast forward to, I came back to university. Well, I had a lot of pressure in Korea in the university. That was one of the reasons I quit. The pressure was mostly just by myself because, like I said, I wanted to be that perfect person, but I couldn't be, because I just simply wasn't, and I couldn't get better because I kept kind of like putting myself down because of this kind of like vicious cycle. Like I want to do perfect, and then I kind of get this block in my head that I cannot speak at all anymore, because I very much experienced this big difference between speaking in like professional, I'll just call it like professional, very formal setting, like speaking in class, speaking to the professor, speaking to my other student friends. I didn't really have friends, but the other students who, the people that I thought of me, that I had to speak it correctly and perfectly, and I couldn't be that person. I couldn't keep up my appearance. At that point, it was under a lot of pressure, and I couldn't perform because I cannot perform under pressure. That's one of the things that has haunted me through my life as well. And I realized it somewhere in like high school, but that's a different story. Anyways, and with my friends, which I just could like freewheel through the conversation, and I knew that they wouldn't judge me on my, or at least I knew that I wouldn't, I felt more at ease with them, and I felt more, I'm just like, okay, I don't care about making a mistake. These people are nice. They love me for just the person I am, and not the reason, not because I'm perfect or something. Not that I am perfect, but like my idea that people think maybe I'm perfect, and then no, I'm not. But anyways, so fast forward again to university in the Netherlands, because I came back to the Netherlands to do my master's in translation. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna